Good evening and hello to all of my caregivers, my families. Welcome back to another episode of OMG, I'm a Caregiver. And today we have the beautiful Tanya Moon joining us today. I sent a little sneak peek today earlier, just a small video talking about your project.
Thank
So
you.
we are very curious to hear more about your project, what you do, what it consists of. We're so excited to have somebody of your caliber on the show. So just take it away. Tell us about
Thank
yourself
you.
and just let's hear it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's so good to see you, Tessie. We go way back.
Way back.
Listen, way back. So the Grandbaby Project is a nonprofit that I founded going on 3.5 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I spent my professional career in the senior care industry, primarily in hospice. And so prior to that, though, I was the main caregiver for my grandmother, who has been gone 16 years. And so
Mm,
when I tell the story, we kind of have to think back 16 years and think about the way dementia and memory care was done kind of back in the day,
mm-hmm.
which is it really wasn't done. There really wasn't anything. So my grandmother, like a lot of families, she was great at hiding her symptoms. Her quote forgetfulness is something that we overlooked for probably way too long as a family. But we really didn't
Mm-hmm.
know any better. I mean, I prior to getting into senior care, I just thought that people as they age, they got forgetful. And, if you put the
Mm-hmm.
toaster in the refrigerator, that's, it's just something silly that old folks do. I had
Mm-hmm.
no basis or foundation of education. And so anyway, a hospital stay landed her in a skilled nursing community. And we quickly were asked, the first one we were asked to leave very nicely. The fourth one we were told to leave, but she had surgery. She had a hip replacement and, we knew her dementia was pretty bad before then, but wow, after anesthesia and a hospital stay, it really got bad. So we knew there was no turning back, that we would have to place her. And that was really hard for all of us in the family because she was very independent. We thought she ran her own business back in the day where women didn't have businesses. And so she was also someone you really didn't tell what to do. She was the matriarch of the family and she really
Mm-hmm.
ruled the roost. So it was really difficult in a lot of ways. But when we finally, got her situated, the administrator told me, listen, her reputation precedes her. We know that she's a problem. We know that she's a challenge. She was
Wow.
very aggressive. And medications like Haldol and Seroquel didn't
Mm.
work on her because she never took medication her whole life. And so they would try
Mm.
to medicate her and it would be 10 times worse.
Wow.
And so, when that happens, you're asked to leave and go find somewhere else to live. So, this was our fourth or fifth stop. And the next place, the only next place was for her to be institutionalized. I mean, there
Wow.
was nowhere for her to go. There was no more money and there was nowhere for her to go. So we were quite grateful that she was in a Medicaid bed in a long-term care community. And
Mm-hmm.
so it certainly wasn't a fancy memory care, place like we have today. It wouldn't have mattered.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't have afforded $6,000 to $10,000 a month. That's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the agreement with the administrator was I would have to be highly involved and I would have to be there morning to wake her up, evening to help put her to bed,
Wow.
and on the weekends too. And so 7 days a week. You know, um, my daughter at the time was only about 5 months old and my husband traveled all the time. And so I would go with my baby on the way to daycare at 6:30 in the morning, wake up nanny, help get her to the dining room, sneak out and go back after work. I laugh and say my daughter learned to walk in the halls of a nursing home. I mean,
Wow.
that's just where she grew up. So we did that for a long time. And my grandmother was always very calm, cool, collected, sweet if I had my daughter with me. So Cameron was just a baby. I mean, she was in a car carrier. And so Nanny would often hold her and I would put her, in her lap, and she was always really gentle. And my cousin came one day and brought a baby doll. And I mean a $6 baby doll off the Walmart shelf. This little thing was crazy looking. It was hard plastic. It was about 10 inches long. It had
Hmm.
wild hair. And I said, "What in the world are you going to do with that?" And she said, "Well, I think that it'll just distract her so that you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of sneak out." And I said, "Well, she's way smarter than that. She's not going to think that that's a baby." And she said, "No, I don't know what. She may not like it at all, but she always loved babies." And so this thing was so pitiful. We didn't even have a blanket for it. We wrapped it in a towel from the nursing home and we literally handed it to her. And it was like handing her a newborn baby.
Wow.
And we were both really kind of taken aback, like, "Oh my God, what are we doing?" Like, she really thinks that's a baby. And so it was in that moment that I thought, wow, she's way more far gone than I ever thought. And so I remember telling the caregivers at the nursing community, "Look, she's going to carry around this doll. Maybe, I don't know, just let her have it." They kind of laughed at me because they were like, "Oh, we're not big enough to try to take it away from Miss Ruby. She can have
Mhm.
whatever she wants because she's fine." So, I go the next day, the next morning, I've
Yep.
got my kiddo in the car in the carrier and I walk in and she's already up and she has that baby. And I was like, huh. And she didn't even pay attention to us. So I thought, okay, this is strange. So I go on to work, call the administrator around lunchtime. And I said, "Listen, I was there early this morning. She had that doll thing. Like, is she okay?" And she said, "She's in the activity room." Well, my grandmother never went in the activity room because she would say it was for those people. And she didn't think she was one of them. And I said, "But how did you get her in there?" And she said, "She went in. She has that doll." I was like, so eventually, the administrator asked that we stop coming as much because she would just get a little put out with us. And we quickly learned that we had to bring a gift for the baby. And that could be a diaper, it could be a newborn outfit, it could be anything. But it was always about her baby. And so the care
Wow.
team started saying, "She's so much easier to shower since she has that doll." And I mean, this was not a special doll. There was this poor thing was terrible. And I said, "Well, she doesn't fight y'all anymore." And they were like, "No, as long as we set the doll where she can see it, she's fine." So everything became, "Miss Ruby, it's time to go to the dining room. Everybody wants to see what the baby's wearing. Let's go."
Mm,
So she would go to show off
yeah.
her baby. And everything was about that baby. And so she went on hospice, had her baby. She died with her baby in her arms. We
Oh
buried her baby with her because I was not going to get to heaven and have Nanny be mad at me
my,
because I didn't send that baby.
yes. Wow.
So the rest of the family thought it was totally nuts, much like I did in the beginning. God put a very, very, very specific seed in my heart. And I remember so clearly, it was like, "You were going to do something with dolls and dementia." Well, I really didn't even know what dementia was. I didn't work in the healthcare field at that time. So after my grandmother died, I took a little bit of time off. I called up her hospice nurse, which I loved. And I said, "Hey, I want to go back to work, and I think I want to do something in the medical field, but I'm not a nurse. I have no medical background. I was just, what are your thoughts?" And she said, "I think you should work in hospice." And I was like, "Well, what would I do?" And she said, "No, you could like be in marketing." And I was like, "Well, that's the creepiest thing I've ever heard of, but okay." So that led to a 15-year career in hospice. And I really got my dementia education through my hospice experiences. And I was very drawn to dementia patients at end of life because that's what I lived with my grandmother. And through the years, I just I would walk into a nursing home and I would see a little lonely lady with one plastic little baby doll that someone probably gave her. And it would just remind me of my grandmother. And it was like, God was like,
Mhm.
see, see,
That's
see.
what it is.
And so it wasn't until my daughter, I had one child, and she started preparing to go off to college. And I thought, what am I going to do when she's gone?
Yeah.
I was like, this is the time. The time is now. And so I was so naive. I mean, by that point, I was really educated in dementia, and I did a lot of volunteer work and got my dementia practitioner certification and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, well, I'm just okay. So I do what everybody does when you want to learn something new. I just Google dementia
Yeah.
doll therapy class,
Mhm.
and there
Mhm.
was nothing. And the only things that kept coming up were in the UK. And I thought, wait, this cannot be real.
Wow.
Like, so I started trying to find research, and I was blown away that there was nothing, not any type of class, no type of specific programming. I mean, look,
Mhm.
we've been, and some of your listeners, as far as caregivers, we've probably all been in those really nice memory care communities where they
Yeah.
have the life station.
Yeah.
And I always was intrigued by the life stations because you would have a nursery set up, or you would have
Okay.
a wood bench set up, or a typewriter. But what you never saw was anyone at the life station.
Mhm.
Very rarely. I mean, I certainly never saw anyone playing with in the quote nursery life station.
Mhm.
There'd be like a
Mhm.
doll in the bed and no one around it. And so I kind of fast forward, really kind of clawed my way to finding someone who is a neurologist in the UK that I was able to study his research in dementia doll therapy and work with his team virtually, and really got my education that way because there's no education in the US. And interestingly enough, doll therapy for those living with dementia in Japan, the UK, Australia, and other countries overseas is very
Mhm.
common. Physicians will even write a script for dementia doll therapy in the UK for people with dementia. So we don't have that here, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because physicians will write a script here for play therapy for children that have special needs.
Sure.
And so, I'm always thinking about that. But anyway, I remember, I felt like, okay, I think I know what this is all about. I read there's only been 15 research studies done worldwide ever
Wow.
with less
Wow.
than 300 participants. And
Wow.
so, it took me an evening to read them. There wasn't really much to them. They all showed the same
Mhm.
thing, that dementia doll therapy really helps with anxiety, depression, isolation. It's great for sundowning, great for really challenging behaviors and things like that, which was no surprise to me because that is exactly what it did for my grandmother. So we were doing
Sure.
dementia doll therapy. We just didn't know it at all.
Didn't know it.
We
Right.
didn't know it. And the caregivers didn't know it. We were just glad she wasn't fighting. I mean,
Correct.
it was a good day because
Yeah.
that's what we considered a good day. So, it was just so hard. I tell families this disease is so much harder on you than it is your loved one. They're
I heard
fine. They're
that.
in their own world. They don't,
Yeah.
it's us that it's
Mhm. Mhm.
so it took us over 2 years to find our dolls. I knew that I did not want the doll like my grandmother had, and I wanted dolls that really met
You didn't
the
want the little creepy
I
Carrie
did
doll?
not want the plastic doll. And what's crazy is my grandmother slept with her doll because no one could take it away from her. So, and obviously she was in her 80s. She had very thin skin. And so she always looked like she'd been in a cat fight because the doll it would scratch her all night. She rolled
Ah.
over, and, we
Yeah.
always had to wrap the skin tears and
Yeah. Skin
everything. So
tears.
I
Yep.
knew that, that type of doll would never fly in
Mhm.
today's world of regulations in senior care communities. So we finally found the baby dolls, and I called up a friend of mine who was an executive director in a memory care, and I said, "I'm going to bring some dolls, and I want to see if your people like them." And yeah, she kind of thought I was nuts. And so that was 4 years ago, and we walked in, and the residents just came to and wanted babies and wanted babies. And she said, "Well, where are the rest of the babies?" And I said, "No, I only have 5." And she was like, "Oh God, we're about to have a problem," because everybody wanted babies. But
Yeah.
so, fast forward now, all these years later, we have the only comprehensive training and programming and dementia doll therapy certification in the US.
Wow.
We're in 14 states. We're
That's so
in,
great.
gosh, let's see, we have babies in Nigeria, Mexico City, Canada, New Zealand.
Wow.
And every year we get bigger and bigger. This
Yeah.
year we will send out 3,500 therapy babies, and we will have trained over
Wow.
2,000 caregivers. Because listen, I could never come up with all this by myself. There's no way. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
you know, senior care communities love it. Really, we don't allow communities to have our dolls unless they agree to training, because if you drop off a bunch of beautiful little babies and you have a party, that's fun, but the residents don't get the benefit unless the caregivers truly understand how to utilize the dolls so that the residents can have the best benefit. And so there's a very comprehensive training that we do. And then even if a family goes online and purchases a grandbaby kit, in their kits, our grandbabies can be customized according to race and gender. And so they get this beautiful box with this sweet baby wrapped in a blanket with fresh newborn diapers, a newborn outfit, a bottle, a birth certificate. Our babies are scented to smell like baby powder. And we hand select every single outfit that babies wear so that we can be sure the recipient is getting a very tactile experience with the touch and the feel of the clothing. And so I, I just wake up every day and just can't believe that this is where we are and this is where we're going. And it's just been a wild, fast few years. And so this is what I do full time. I'm the grandbaby mommy. Like, I even brought some for y'all to see. Yes, yes, yes.
Goodness.
I know, I know, I know. So
Gorgeous.
our dolls are really, really specific. People
Mm-hmm.
ask me about different types of dolls, and of course, I think ours are the best. But
Of
ours
course.
meet standards. With infection control standards, sanitary, and
Mm-hmm.
all that good kind of stuff. But they're
Mm-hmm.
so sweet and cuddly and so
I
detailed,
can
and
tell. Yeah.
they're adorable. So we do a lot of shopping, girl. We do a lot of shopping.
I
And
love it.
look at this. Look at his little sweater because it's almost winter time. So one thing that's really kind of cool is that, the babies they're bigger. So baby's 20 inches long. I mean, and they're
Okay.
like super chubby, super, super soft, soft silicone, but the wobbly big head, and
I
they're
love
just,
it.
they're so fun. So they all wear newborn size clothes, actual baby clothes, and they all wear newborn diapers. And so when we're working with a family or a community, we provide both with an
Mm-hmm.
entire list of activities that we have developed that you can do one on one with
Mm-hmm.
someone with dementia or in a group. And so, for example, undressing a baby all the way down to the diaper and taking the diaper off takes someone with moderate dementia about 30 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
So I always tell families and caregivers, what would you do with 30 to 40 extra minutes when you know the person that you're caring for is engaged, safe, they're not up wandering around, they're kind of fixated? what does that give you back during the day? And so I think that that's where it really just makes such a big, huge difference. And, I also say, listen, the goal is not to, hope and pray and make everyone love a baby doll because some won't. Some just won't. There's just not a connection. They just won't. And that's okay. But what's so important is when you really think about someone with dementia, they don't get to make a lot of decisions themselves during the day. You
Mhm.
know, we wake them up, we typically dress them, fix their meals. Sometimes we're feeding them. We often have to help toilet them, shower them, tell them where to
Mhm.
sit, tell them, all
Mhm.
these things. And so
Mhm.
if I'm doing doll or, baby introductions and someone tells me no, for me, that is just as therapeutic as the woman that grabs the baby and starts crying because she thinks she's just been handed a baby, a true baby. And I love that. I love that we give them the power to decide in that moment whether or not they want to participate because there are some days they may just want to say no. That's good. We come at it from the perspective the resident or the client is always right. If if they think the baby's a baby, great. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Hello? Can you hear me? You're frozen. There you are.
It'll okay. It just keeps recording, so it'll
Yeah,
just
it's
pick back
fine.
up like nothing happened.
Yeah.
So I love first of all everything that you have done and are doing. Just beautiful. Just
No,
praise
thank
God
you.
for that. And it's it's so needed. As you talk, I've been in the industry just as long as you, and I'm just thinking about all of the families and just even now, like the people that I know would benefit from a grandbaby. Like, I mean, this is blowing my mind right now.
It's amazing. I tell you, I was not prepared for how emotional it is,
Mm.
because I see my grandmother in everyone. And people often ask me, what do men think of the babies? And
Yeah, that was going to
let
be
me
a
tell you
question of mine.
something, I that is something that has surprised me. I didn't have any experience with men. It was my grandmother. There's
Mm-hmm.
no research to say
Mm-hmm.
it works better for women or men. It
Men,
doesn't
right.
exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, we've delivered thousands and thousands of babies now. And so the men, boy, they get my heartstrings. So as women, we're obviously nurturers. We immediately start
Mm-hmm.
holding the baby, cuddling the baby,
Mm-hmm.
rocking the
Mm-hmm.
baby. The
Mm-hmm.
men go into play mode. They go into grandpa
Hmm.
mode. They want to patty cake, trotty horse. They want to figure out how do you get him or her, that baby, tied onto the walker so he can go everywhere with me.
That is so cute.
It's unbelievable. I love it so much.
I've never guessed that in
I
my
know, me
mind.
neither.
That's what I was thinking. Like, do you ever get requests for a grandbaby for a man? And, not necessarily always just a woman.
It is usually people will, when we go into a community, people will say, well, that's George, and he's probably not going to want one. And I just remind people that one thing research does tell us is that 56% of the time, if we try to guess if someone will want the baby, we are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
wrong. We guess wrong 56% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just say, let's just try.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's I could probably over thousands of babies, there's probably been less than 10 men that have not wanted it, and I think a lot of it is giving them permission. And Usually, the biggest obstacle, well, not usually, always, the biggest obstacle to dementia doll therapy, there's two things. Number one is the thought of caregivers thinking it won't work. And number two, the family thinking, why would I give my mom a doll to play with? Or why would I let my dad play with a doll? It's a dignity issue, or,
Sure.
I respect her more than that, or she would never want this. And so what I tell families and caregivers is, well, let's just take a step back. We have a very unique technique that we have developed in handing over the babies. And let's just see if they want it. If they do, great. If they don't, then let's give them a cupcake because we're having a party. It's, it's fine. And
Mm-hmm.
usually it's the families that say, I don't want this. I think that this is demeaning. I think it's disrespectful. They shouldn't play with toys. And I'll just say, would you mind if I just try? And they'll say, yeah, you can try, but she's not going to want it. And man, that is always the son or the daughter, the sister or whoever who's over in the corner tearful because they're like, I've never seen my dad this way, or I've never
Wow.
seen mom act this way.
Wow.
And we say, it's because she thinks she's holding you. You don't remember being that size. You don't remember, of course, you don't remember how she felt when she was handed you. And, another question that we get is, well, what if the person's never had children? I'm like, doesn't matter. They
That
become,
makes me want to cry.
I know, I know. Yeah,
Thinking about that, like, you're absolutely right. That's where they are in their
that is
mind.
exactly where they are. Yeah.
The day, like, and you're a mom, I'm a mom. I mean, just thinking about the feeling, I feel like it just really never leaves you, regardless
It
of
gives
what
me
state
chills
of mind you're
every
in.
every time. It just
When
gives
you
me
were
chills.
handed your baby, like, the whole feeling that you like, it's never left me, and my son's 15.
Right.
Your daughter's a grown up, like, it just never leaves you. So I can only imagine how they feel,
Yeah.
like
We
it's
have a
starting
lot
all
of
over again.
tears of happiness,
Yeah.
a lot of, oh, thank you, Jesus, for my baby. We've seen, it's very interesting. And again, there's no research behind it, but men specifically, we have found, will immediately go to humming or singing, even those that are nonverbal, they will start to try to communicate. We've had amazing situations where we had a lady who got the baby, loved the baby, was just over the moon,
Mhm.
and started singing Jesus Loves Me. And her daughter walked in and said, is that my mom? And I didn't know. And I was like, well, which one? And she said, and she just started crying. She said, that can't be my mother. My mother hasn't spoken in 2 years. And I'm like, well, she's singing to that baby. And I mean, it's on our Facebook page, full out, Jesus loves me. I mean, we were blown away. And it just taps into something. It taps into that need for attachment, those memories. People ask sometimes, what if someone has lost a child to tragedy? Or what if someone's had a miscarriage? Or what if there's been, their child died?
Mhm.
How is this going to be for them? And again, there's no research around that. And I'm very
Mhm.
transparent. I say, I don't know. But in my experience, we've never had someone get upset or mad. They're just joyful. They're either joyful or they just don't want to participate. And if they don't want to participate, that's fine because cookies and cupcakes solve a lot of problems in dementia. And so we're like, well, what kind of snack can we get you? We're having a party because we'll do a big baby shower event. And
Yeah.
it's just amazing. There's always someone who wants two babies. We always bring extras. And at first I was like, did this many people have twins back in the day? But I figured out what it is. Here's what's so funny. And families laugh when I say this, but and you know this because you've worked in the business. The mean girls that sat at the table all together in the lunchroom in high school, they're all now in memory care. Okay. And they want things because everybody else has them. So even if they think that's a doll, that's not a baby, they want one because everybody else is getting one and I want mine.
Mm.
And so we meet them where they're at. If someone says that's a doll, our response is, you think it's a doll? Well, it's cute. Well, yeah, I guess so. And then we'll just stay in the moment and chat with them. And then eventually they'll go to grab for the doll or grab it or whatever. And when we approach someone, we never say, look at the baby or look at the doll. We just have the doll in our arms. We strike up conversation, starting with compliments. And the moment their eyes dart to the baby, we say, what do you think of this? And then so that way we are not putting any type of thoughts in their head of what it is.
Mhm.
If they say it's a baby, they're right. If they say it's a doll, they're right. If they say it's a baby giraffe, they're right. We're like, this is the sweetest baby giraffe ever. We just meet them where they are. And that's led to us really working with senior care communities and developing protocols for how the dolls are used.
Yeah,
You don't want to overstimulate with the babies because if you're really truly in the mindset of a newborn mom, think back, that's very overwhelming. And we don't want it to
sure.
be overwhelming. It's okay to send that baby to daycare
Mhm.
during the day
Yes,
and just
yes,
go see her or get her when you would like her. So
yeah.
it's just been an amazing blessing and journey that, I mean, who would have ever thought,
Tell us how we can find you. If someone
Oh my
wants to
goodness.
order a baby, where can we find it?
Yes, yes. So our website is thegrandbabyproject.org. So you can order babies there. And when you order through the website, you get a whole kit. And then, of course, we're on social media everywhere. And it's
Mhm,
just the Baby Project on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So we're
mhm.
pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
I absolutely commend you
Thank
for
you.
everything you're doing, and I also commend you for taking the leap of faith and doing it regardless of what anybody has to say about it, because
Yeah.
that is what you're doing is needed and it's necessary. It's so necessary. And there's healing that happens with that baby,
It's
you
amazing.
know? It's amazing. I mean, you're giving stories and testimonies of somebody talking that hasn't talked in 2 years,
Mhm.
all because they're holding what they think is their baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
it
it's
doesn't get
been
any better than
it's
that.
just been a great thing and a great blessing, and it's all glory to God because let me tell you, and all of your listeners and watchers know this, caring for someone with dementia is, man, it is, I can't imagine, it's just so hard and it's so
Mhm.
emotionally draining and there's never an
Mhm.
off day. There's
Mm-mm.
there's no time off.
Mm-mm.
And to be able to just have a few minutes to yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's awesome. It really is. And I'm really hopeful that we are also out there changing the stereotypes,
Oh yeah.
that men won't like this or it's silly or whatever.
Mhm.
It really didn't matter to me personally what the research said. I mean, I could have eventually found all the research and it all have been the opposite.
Mhm.
Dementia doll therapy doesn't help. Well, I lived it differently and we didn't know what we were doing. I
Mhm.
mean, we just knew that she liked this thing and we couldn't take it from her or she was going to fight us. And, so when caregivers are like, I'm kind of nervous, I'm like, trust me, you can't screw it up. If the baby falls off the couch, please pick it up. And we'll get upset if they think the baby's hurt.
Please pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. But, and so I would encourage people to think outside the box. If you care for someone or if you have a family member with dementia, we're always thinking, what can we give them? Think
Mhm.
outside the box, and think about this or, think of anything tactile related. I just, it's, I think that we've learned so much about the disease, but
Mhm.
in all of that education, and there's so much information out there because of the
Mhm.
internet and everything. And
Mhm. Mhm.
man, you can really get overwhelmed by, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And
Sure.
at the end of the day, we honestly don't know what someone is going to respond to. We just don't.
And guess what? You're having the same thought. That's the same thought process that you have becoming a new mother.
Uh huh.
You know,
Exactly. You're exactly
becoming
right.
a new mother. I'm hearing you, but I'm thinking about the Lord when I had Ethan. That was me all day long. Oh, am I doing it right? Oh, I messed up. You know what I mean?
I'm
Like
going to ruin him.
my, yeah, I'm going to ruin him. He's going to be there. Jesus, you know. And I remember my friend used to tell me, is he clean? Is he fed? Is he laughing? Is he happy? You're doing fine. You're
Hmm.
doing fine.
Yeah.
So
Same.
it's much of the same, right?
That's so true. I never looked at it like that, but you're exactly
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah.
Much
Yeah.
of the same. So
Yeah.
that is amazing. So
Hmm.
thank you so
You're
much for being
so
on our
welcome. I
show
appreciate
and
your interest.
and
Yeah.
educating our guests, our listeners, our caregivers. And guys, Tanya is just what her work is. This is legendary. This is going to be something that's going to carry on even when we're not even here anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Hope
going
so.
to just live on because this is so helpful. It's the more advances that are made in the disease and the studies and the science, this is always going to be attached to it. Why? Because it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the, and I work in the senior communities and I see so many, there's too many labels going around for so many things. And again, I'm just attributing all that I hear to a lack of education or a lack of resources,
Hmm.
but when people know better, they should do better. And this is a new resource. This is, you know, people need to just kind of, like you said, cast those cares away and get past the stereotypes of it being a doll and just think of the good it's going to do, especially if your loved one is in a community where there's violence and, it's hard to settle them down. They don't have a strategy or they want to over medicate. That's the
Yeah.
thing is they will over. I just spoke to a family just last Thursday and he said his mom was so heavily medicated. She had drool
Hmm.
coming out of her. He was like, what's wrong with my mother?
Bless his
Like, well, we
heart.
can't keep her calm. So what are you giving her? Like she's a zombie. Like lifts up the arm and falls down. Like, you doing the and he's like nothing. Nothing. And I just thought like, shoot,
Yeah. That's
you
so
know.
sad. So sad.
So when you look past the fact that it is a doll, and again, just think of the benefits that come along with the gifts, because that's initially and in essence what it is. It is a gift.
Yeah. Thank you. I say it's not a toy, it's a tool to bridge the gap. And some of
Yeah.
my fondest memories were in, my grandmother's last couple of years of life and sitting after she had become nonverbal
Huh?
and sitting with her and dressing the baby. Her whole first dresser drawer in the nursing home was all baby clothes. And so we would rummage, rummage and rummage and rummage. And, I just remember sitting there doing that and it would make her so happy that, that was her baby. And so it's a lot of fun. And I want to say something else that a big part of what I always want to make sure that we're doing, regardless of how big we get and all of that kind of stuff, is it is one thing for a family to be able to have the resources to put their loved one in a
Uh-huh.
beautiful memory care or an
Uh-huh.
amazing community. And there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of places out there, and you and I both know this, Tezzy, there's a lot of
Uh-huh.
places out there that aren't as expensive that do an amazing, beautiful job, and they
For
really have
sure.
heart for the business. But there's a lot of families out there who just have to do it themselves. And there's just not a choice. And so I always, always make it clear that if I never want to be an obstacle for someone getting our babies or our resources. And if
Mhm.
that's ever the case, all someone has to do is send us a little note through the internet or through our Facebook page and just, we scholarship babies all the time. And I that's the least that we can do because, I don't want anyone thinking, "Oh, I wish I could have that for my mom, but we can't afford it." We are always, always fundraising, and we always take a portion of that money and set it aside for people who don't have the funds or the resources. And so we're available for that. And
Wow.
that's,
Wow.
listen, I can't get to heaven and Nanny be saying, there was a lot of people that you didn't help because they couldn't afford it. Oh, like,
No baby left behind. I love it.
so I just want people out there to know that don't be embarrassed. It is our pleasure, and we are more than happy to help in any way that we can. And all you have to do is send us a
Absolutely
note.
love it.
Those notes come directly to me. So just send us a note that we would love a doll, and resources may be a little tight, and that's all you got to say. We'll get it to you.
Bless you. God bless your
The
business
least we can do.
and everything that you guys are doing. That is absolutely incredible.
No, thanks.
That was
Thank you.
incredible. You actually took a thought that I had while you were talking. I was
Hey, y'all
thinking,
want to
well, I
send us
don't,
some money? We'll take money too. We're always
you know
raising
what?
money.
Send it, send it, send it, please. Grandbaby Project. Yes. Let's send it. All the checks. That
But
is
God can take care
incredible.
of all that. I just want to make sure that people get, good resources because it's hard. You can get as you
Mhm.
know, people can get lost in the shuffle and it's easy to give up and just
All
get really sad and upset and depressed. And we
that's so
don't want that
crazy.
to happen. So
Well, thank you so much.
you're
I
welcome.
appreciate you for being on here and educating us. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Tanya, I will have you back on the show. My hope is that, one day I can maybe come with you to a baby shower
Of
and film
course. Oh my
a
goodness.
baby
Yes.
shower. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that everyone can see what that experience is like,
Absolutely.
firsthand. So I appreciate you, and to all my caregivers and my families out there, you heard it from Tanya's mouth to your ears. Price is not an issue. So look her up. She's given her website. Give it one more time, Tanya.
It is www.thegrandbabyproject.org.
grandbabyproject.org. Look her up. I will be getting with Tanya to get some footage from some of her baby showers so that I can add it to the YouTube page. I'm so certain that this is going to fall into the right hands. And if you guys have any questions, remember, you can drop me a DM. You can, message me on social media, or you can send me an email at tbaldwin@developme10x.com, and I will get a response to you saying that very, very quickly. So thank you for listening. Thank you for
Thank you,
liking,
everyone.
following, subscribing to OMG. I'm a caregiver, and I will see you later.
Okay. Bye.